We will call the order at 5:03 this evening. We can stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we will go right on to item C, which is public comment. We will offer both in-person and online comments. Always referring to in-person first. We have anybody in-house for comment? No, okay, we don't have anybody with us tonight for in-person. Anybody online for virtual comment? You could raise your hand if you're interested in speaking.
All set.
Okay, all right, great. So then we will move right on to item B, which is minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the attached July 19, 2023 minutes?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item B, correspondence received 7/18/2023 to 8/14/2023. We did have two pieces of correspondence received during that time period, as you can see there from John and Jessica. They're included in your agenda packets. Both of those are we are working on responses to get back out to both of those parties. So we will keep working on that. But I always take an opportunity at this point to remind our Farmington residents and others to make sure that they do use the correspondence form, which both of these individuals happen to do as well, to reach out to us. But to get more information from us, if you have questions, comments, thoughts, anything you'd like to share with us, that comment form, which is on the landing page or website at the bottom, is the best way to do that. So please keep doing that. It's a great way for us to stay in touch and answer questions as appropriate. We'll go right on to item F, which is reports. F1 is chair report. I have nothing specific at this point to share, so we'll go right on to F2, town council liaison report.
Nothing to report. Honestly, it's probably been more than 2 weeks since we met, so I have no idea what we're talking about. So.
All right. Anything for Johnny? Any specific questions or anything else? All right, we will go right on to Board of Education liaison report.
We've gone longer than
Yeah.
that. It's getting ready.
Nothing school. Yeah, I know, back to school very soon.
And we'll have a
You
full
may-
report from the board, a lot of time.
Yeah.
When we get back.
Great. Thanks to the Board of Ed. All right, we will go right on to the building committee liaison report.
No report, and we could probably be, in terms of not meeting it. So no, but no report right now.
Any questions for Chris at all on 1928? We're actually going to talk a little bit more about 1928 later in the agenda, but nothing specific for the committee. Item 5, owner's rep report.
Okay, so we just have a couple of items. The first thing is we're still continuing our professional team meetings every week. In that, like we've done, the past couple months and review RFIs and submittals. We've also been making sure that we review all change orders in that meeting, making sure the scope is correct and the costs have been properly vetted. And then once we review them, we disseminate those to the decision-making group and then the finance committee, and then they go to the building committee. The state change order 4 will be submitted in the next couple of weeks after the change orders that we're going to talk about a little bit later get approved tonight. We still haven't heard anything from the state on the last reimbursement payment. So once we get reimbursed or once the town rather gets reimbursed for that, then we can go ahead and submit the next payment. And then the last two things is we received a draft of the technology equipment bid package today. So I know Matt Ross is taking a deep dive into that, making sure it includes everything that is required of the programming. And then for the FF&E bid package on TSVP, I'm sure we'll report that they're finalizing that. And that should be a draft of that should be coming in the next couple weeks. That's all I have.
Just only comment, I don't know, we've tried to put some pressure on the state on the payment. I think it's been an exceptionally long time and, you know, this is only payment two we're looking
It's been
for.
like almost 500.
Yeah.
And it's been like that with other projects too, they just.
And it's $6 million we actually.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if an additional inquiry coming straight from the town might make sense or not, but we can certainly talk about
we
that.
can do that, and also if we need to have our legislative delegation involved as well.
Yeah, it might not be a bad idea to start having that pressure come from someone other than us.
There's usually a delegate.
60 to 90 days is usually, Sam, when you agree on.
Yeah, it's usually, I would say it's closer to 90 usually.
The first one we got back pretty quickly.
Pretty
Yeah, and there's been other ones and on other projects, I've heard that they haven't received theirs either, they were submitted around the same time, so maybe, I don't know if they're just backed up or what's going on, but.
But even an answer other than we're looking at it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, for cash flow purposes,
Correct.
Yeah,
having $6 million in reimbursement waiting out there.
Yeah.
yeah,
We'll do whatever we can.
It's a financial
Yeah.
burden on the town.
Yeah.
Are we waiting for, we're not waiting for them to approve it, we're waiting for them just to reimburse us, right?
They approve it.
they have to
to
approve it and then they'll, process the payment.
But there should be no reason why they're not approved.
No, there shouldn't be, we
Okay.
submitted all the backup and everything that they need, so.
And when was that?
April, right, yeah.
So it was in one fiscal year and now we're in another fiscal year, I don't know if that has anything to do with.
I'll bring it up at council.
Yeah.
See if we can talk to the chair and then my city manager. We'll talk to them and see if they can put any pressure.
Right. Any other questions for Stan or anything? All right, let's go right on to architect report.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. So we continue to be pleased with the pace of the work on the site. I think that ONG is doing a great job making sure that all crews are showing up when they're supposed to show up and doing work that they're supposed to be doing. One of the bad signs on a project is when it's idle. Believe me, this site is not idle. It's a very exciting site to visit, and if committee members have, I know we had one committee meeting in the trailer, which was great, but I think that if the committee members wanted to visit the site, I'm gonna speak on behalf of ONG, I think they could arrange to have a tour. They'll let you borrow their hard hats and safety vests. It's really an exciting time. Things are starting to take shape. Lockers have arrived, for example, they're not installed yet.
No, they're staged to be installed in a few weeks.
Yeah,
Classroom mock-up with.
classroom mock-up with cabinetry, so you can see all that stuff. It's really wonderful to see. The building has turned green. I'm gonna wait for ONG's explanation on why it's green now. I think I know, but I'll let you explain
It'll
it.
be blue and then red.
Oh, okay. You heard Sam say that we did have a meeting with technology. We did do the final draft review of the technology specs, which Matt is going to review and get back to us by the 6th. Our plan is to have the technology specs presented to the Board of Ed at its meeting on September the 18th. So I believe, Kathy, you're going to get that on the agenda. Matt's going to make the presentation with me and we'll explain all of the components of the technology equipment package. And then it'll come back to this body, the building committee, for its meeting on September the 20th. So hopefully that will be on your agenda and we'll do the same thing. Matt and I will make a presentation of what's in the technology package. And Matt will also prepare or present the cost estimate, the budget for all of the technology equipment. He is making some changes in the categories of technology. We talked about that today, so I'm looking forward to his feedback. And we'll get that back to you in September. Susan Pinckney in my office is forging ahead with the FF&E, and I know she has a meeting scheduled with Kim in our office to review fabrics that are going to be related to furniture, the soft furniture. I believe sometime this month, she's gonna be doing that. And her targets for reviews by the Board of Ed and this building committee is in October. Our plan is to go to the state with the technology package in October, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's the last Wednesday of October,
Okay,
and then technology is for central office and high school.
right,
Furniture is the following week, that's just the high school.
just high school. That's everything from my perspective. Anything from your perspective? Questions?
All right, thank you. Well, we, talk about that tour, 'cause I think, right, everybody would be interested in doing, you know, I think a couple people couldn't go, for the first one, but it would be good. We'll take a look.
Should town council on the board.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's
that would be
great. Yeah, so, we get that. Yeah, it's gonna be busy. Lot of
Split up
visitors,
into-
a lot of
Split up into
visitors.
tours like,
And you set the bar high the first time, with cookies and all sorts of stuff.
We have the space.
All right, so why don't we go on to construction manager report?
Thank you, good afternoon, just gonna give a brief summary, I wish I could be as brief as everybody else, but there's a lot going on. And, I actually issued my report, so what I'll discuss is already in the report, but overall, the site work activity, so teachers and students, teachers come back, next Wednesday. And students, freshman orientation on the 25th, so, site work wise, all the utility work is wrapping up outside the construction fence. Monteith Drive has additional utilities that, prior to the summer, that there's gas lines, there's primary electric lines, so going into the summer, we tried to get the widening that didn't occur because of the congestion and the amount of work that needed to take place there. But the sewer lines, water lines, fiber optic, primary electric, the new pole on Route 4, that's all done. CMG, which is not under our contract, but they have a subcontractor, Burns Construction, they have a small section of gas line on Route 4 to connect, but they'll get that done fairly soon. We have a schedule on that, but our work on Monteith is pretty much done. The sidewalk and the curbing will be done in the fall season, and we'll work around the bus schedule. Sidewalks are done in the lawn area, so we shouldn't impact any of the coming and goings of the high school itself. So we'll coordinate that at work. We've been working with TSKT with RFI submittals. Submittals are wrapping up for the most part. We held off on area F so that we can focus on the high school. That'll restart September 1st. As far as the site, what you see here, you have, and I'll keep reminding everybody, we have two classroom pods, classroom building A and building B. So what you see there is building A. The masonry veneer, the hydromobile scaffolding is off of those elevations. Now they're on the backside where you see on the far end, the blue skin. So to Richard's question about colors, you have the sheathing, which is green, then which gets installed on the metal stud. Then you have the air vapor barrier, which is the blue skin. And then the masonry follows. In this picture, it's hard to see, but where you see that boom lift up high, the ground face CMU on that stair, one tower has started, it's halfway up. This picture is from last week. I have some other pictures that will actually show it's farther up. The stairwell in the back, by the courtyard, that CMU started today. The window, Lockheed mobilized this week, so within a few weeks, you'll start seeing windows on those elevations. The wash down of the brick has started on the back side, so the side that faces the neighborhood, Briarwood side, that's been washed. And the side that you see from the parking lot hasn't been done. They're actually working in a clockwise orientation. Inside the building, mechanicals, both in A and B, the rough, basically at like 95%. Sheet rock has started on the second and third floors. We still have rain that comes in. We temporarily close the skylights, but with the first floor being damp, we don't want to start sheet rock yet. Because of quality issues, we don't want the sheet rock to get wet. So that'll, once we get the roof done on the far end and get that ground face CMU, the building will be a lot drier. And but they have enough work on the second and third floors of both buildings to proceed. On the far end, next slide, please. So this is the mock-up classroom. Casework is not being installed because we don't have humidity control, but we did a mock-up of one room to get outlet locations. We have the school, we have TSKP, their consultants, everybody looked at location of outlets. And actually, we changed some of the configuration, but that's your mock-up classroom, which is 1109, and it's on the this one is actually on the first floor, and it's one of the dry rooms. So we actually were able to do the sheet rock in that area. But you can see the ductwork is all insulated, sprinkler pipes. Actually, the top of wall has been taped, and there's fire caulking is taking place as that work is being done. Next slide, please. That's the blue skin on building B. They're setting up the hydro mobiles for the masonry for the brick veneer. So this is area C. This is the second floor of area C. So the first floor has masonry, CMU, but the second floor they had metal studs. I don't have a picture of this week's work, but now that's fully framed out. The more mechanicals are in place. So fireproofing. So this is the student. This is the second floor of area D above your electrical, mechanical, culinary spaces. So this area, I think the senior wing or senior lounge is in this area. So that's we're in the early stages. So the fireproofing was completed about a month ago. You see sprinkler lines in there, hangers, and they're getting ready to now. Actually, this side is framed as of this week. Area D second floor. This is area E, first floor slab on grade. Area E is a large area. There's sections of area E, such as the auditorium, which has curved radiuses where we've been going back and forth to make sure with TSKP that they're correct. Because the seating, the lighting, the aisle lighting, there's a lot of coordination that takes place there. So the auditorium proper area, that slab floor is going to take place next week in different on different days. So we're going to do the top end and the bottom end, and then we're going to do the middle section. I don't have a picture of that in this, but I do have it in the second batch of actually pictures that were taken today. I believe this is the admin section of the admin and probably the black box theater as well. Next, this is just a picture of the soft tooth skylights on the back end over the amphitheater area. We have soft tooth skylights over the cafeteria area, but this is so that you have the acoustical decking on one side, which will be a metal panel, and then on the opposite side will be skylights with windows. So they're in the process of getting the decking installed. North parking lot, that's going to be paved next week. That's where the contractor parking is going to be during the school year, and on this back side to do all this curbing. We have to, for the summer, we have to close off the pathway. This Crestwood is right beyond the picture, and we're going to reconnect it. Students are going to be, the fence is going to be on the parking lot. We're going to ramp down from the concrete, from the granite curbing, so that it's ADA accessible, but we're going to get that walkway open before freshman orientation. So that walkway will be open on the 24th. That's the last photo, if you could just take to the separate file. So that's the elevation of, as of today. So you see the ground base, it's halfway up that stair tower. We're a little further along from last week. Next photo, please. It's a very wet site. We just threw that, that's the same classroom. Spray fireproofing, so that's the stadium seating on the gymnasium side, which is on your right hand side, so they're spray fireproofing, the media center. That's the auditorium that I just spoke about, so they're gonna place this concrete in two sections, so the air vapor barrier is already done on the top section. This is your stadium seating with the concrete hasn't been placed yet, we'll be doing that, in September. But the bottom section, these radiuses have to be very precise. So we do have a few RFIs that have been answered by the SKP, and we're getting ready to place that concrete. So the stage area, you see the staged opening, that area, that's all been placed, that concrete about a month ago. And in the back, you see where the iron worker is finishing up on the Sawtooth skylight over the top area. That's over the cafeteria. So those openings is where you'll have glazing and everything else will be metal panel, school decking. And that's one other photo of today. So they're gonna be doing fine grading early next week, and they'll have that parking lot painted in the middle of the week. That's it on the photos. MEP coordination, that's also wrapping up in area E, with our BIM team. Area F, we did put a hold on it, because there were some changes, in area F as far as room layouts. We'll start that up in September. And, we're ready for school to start next week. Or part of, freshman orientation. That's what we're fun. Questions regarding progress of work? Next summer will be busier. But that's where we're at. And I'll get the drone footage. Now that parking lots, the roof will be wrapped up in September. We'll get the drone guy out here around mid-September, and we'll share some more shots. After that, there's really not much you could take because it really doesn't change, exterior side. So next spring we'll bring it back out there for periodic videos and some shots.
Pressure really good, prep for all this, it's coming back.
Oh, yeah, can't wait. Can't wait. I'm ready for that. I don't know if they're ready for that. You're ready for that.
And we'll be restarting our ONG builds program, so I am reaching out to IAR in Westwoods. So we're gonna figure out the logistics and what, but it's the 7th and 8th graders sometimes that you wanna, that's where they're not decided as far as they don't know what they want to go into, so sometimes seeing construction taking place, you spark some interest. I have some emails out and Scott coordinated, the people talk to, so we'll get that going probably October, November.
Questions? or comments at that time?
I have no questions this week.
So, just to be clear, the schedule looks good. There's nothing on the horizon this season in the rain. I know the rain hasn't been easy.
No, the rain's not easy. I do have a scheduled narrative in my report. Early in the summer, there were, with some of the changes, what basically happened was we ate some flow that was already in the schedule. So there's really no hardship there. There was a lot of work that needed to be done utility wise this summer. We want to get the curbing and the widening done if in the fall and not wait until next summer because we're already coordinating with the school. And with the project team as far as the trucks, once we start demolishing this building. We're gonna try to get a lot of that work done in the summer, so that we're not hauling, triaxles and tractor trailers of debris during the school year. So we're already having those discussions as far as moves and how to do that. So we do want to get that curving, that widening done over the fall, even if it's less productive because of the busing schedule. Site contractors will be involved in that work. And again, they'll be working on the sidewalks indoors where we're not impacting the traffic. And then if they have to on a Saturday or off hours, they'll get the curb. And they'll have traffic control. There's, the schedule fluctuates a little bit, but finish date never changes. So if we have to staff crews, we'll do that. But right now, to Richard's point, there's activity taking place throughout the entire building. You don't see any dead spots out there. There's a trade in, and that's our whole plan. There's a trade in every part of the building. So it's sort of an assembly line from A working on its way out. Then we'll go back.
Thank you.
We're now gonna start meeting monthly on critical path schedule items. We're looking at the entire GMP schedule and just making sure that we're staying on track. If there's anything that we can do to help flush out milestones with O&G. So, it's a really nice collaborative effort. I think our first meeting went really well and helped to kind of pinpoint some of those things. And O&G is trying to be proactive in terms of what can we get done next summer that might not have been originally considered, but could be very helpful for everybody in that time. So we're in that first stage of next summer's work.
We're launching a new website for the school district. It would be really nice, even if we could get some of those pictures and do like a voiceover slideshow for people. I think so, everyone's really curious how things are shaping up in the building and how, it's looking right now. And if we could periodically do that, I think, and put it on our website and the town's website and our building committee's website, I think it would get a lot of attention.
Yeah.
We could send it out to parents, things like that. I don't think it would take a lot of pictures. It's just a voiceover of this is, the auditorium and, pointing some things out.
That's great. And now is the time where it's really taking shape. And just even in the last, I'd say 2 weeks, walking through, you start to see the sheetrock going up in area A, walk on the second floor, and you now can't see through one classroom into the next, or so it really does take, you really do have to turn a corner to see what the next room looks like, and you can visually look down the hall. It's pretty similar school. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, make it easy, but something that we can do. Any other questions? All right, we'll move right on to communications subcommittee report. We actually ended up canceling our communications meeting just before this one, so really no update there for us to provide. Financial subcommittee report, as always, we always do a pre-review of all the financials, try to bring them to the building committee. So all the invoices and change orders that you see were all reviewed by the financial subcommittee last Friday, as well as some of our Monday. Sorry, we changed our schedule a little bit. As well as some of the additional items on the agenda. So the review of that, as well as kind of our looking at, if you remember that graph that we had showed last week as far as what our spend is looking like compared to budget. So we evaluate that as well. And did that full evaluation and walk through that more detail on all these. Did that review prior to bringing it to the full committee. So I don't think there was anything else particularly that we discussed on Monday. So that was just in preparation for this meeting. Financial report, no update. No update for financial. All right, so that brings us to the end of our reports. We'll go right on to item G, new business. So G1, could I get a motion to approve the following invoice package for Farmington Central Office?
So
Second.
All right, we'll open this one up for discussion. Anything in particular, Sam?
No, it's just our monthly and on summer.
Right, any questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item G2, can I get a motion to approve the following invoice package for Farmington High School?
So
Second.
All right, we will open this one up for discussion.
Okay, so our first one for CSG, again, just our, standard monthly lump sum invoice, nothing, different about that one. TSBP, is there anything you want to know for your invoice or?
Yeah, so it's a combination of things. One is the standard monthly construction administration fee. Plus there's some money which is part of amendment number 2, which is for food service. There's $1,496 for food services consultant, which is within the overall fee structure. It's just their share is their shop drawing reviews and that kind of effort. So that's what comprised our invoice.
ties back to one of the early ad service.
Correct.
After debt service.
Nelson, do you want to go through OMGs?
Yes, and I'm just gonna touch upon because our payment application is vetted and I take TSKP's and CSG's comments, including our review comments, so the pencil copy when it goes in, I believe the pencil copy was around 5.8 million, but we adjusted it to 5,650,639.82. It's application number 13, and this is for the period ending 7/31. So the big items on there, concrete is wrapping up 148,000 change, about 88% overall. Connecticut Mason, now that they're doing the masonry, they're at 412,810. But on their overall contractual amount, they're at 13%. So they're from those pictures, they're actually further along. But billing doesn't correlate necessarily with the report. United Steel, they're at 98%, primarily just finishing up some welding and miscellaneous metal items. There are stored materials for Legier Group, which is the casework. They have some billing for the mock-up itself. Scope Construction, who does the general trades, there's $300,000 in there for lockers for both buildings A and B. They also have the operable partitions. They provide the dumpsters, the toilet service, the porta johns and so forth. So their billing portion is about $451,000. Moving on, HR and Sons, they do both the fireproofing and the acoustical ceilings. They're billing strictly for fireproofing. They're at 86,000, roughly 18% of their contract. Trinity does the fire, the air vapor barrier. They're complete with A and B. They're at 41%. Their billing was 48,000. They have a smaller contract. GDS contracting, they do all the framing. They're 382,000 overall. They're at 21%, which is they're actually a little slightly underbilled in area B, but they'll catch up in September. HHS fire protection, they're at 38%. And Ferguson Mechanical, they had a big portion of this billing. Their billing was $2,412,000. And the reason for that, there's about $600,000 in RTUs. RTUs number 3, 7, and 8 arrived. It's staged on site next to our trailers. They have other RTUs, which are rooftop units that'll be coming in November, December, and then some of the units for D and E, those come April of 2024. But we will be using the units that arrived in December for temporary heat, but their billing purposes in ductwork for area C, which, it's about $118,000. So with the materials, they're at the correct percentage, which is 60% overall, but all the mechanicals, the insulated ductwork. So their packages for HVAC plumbing, they have two big packages. So material wise, they have substantial bill. Ferguson Electric, they're smaller portion of billing, but they're at 400,000. The dry type transformers have arrived, and just that portion of work is about $83,000. And then J.I. Appaluccio, which is the site work contractor, she's at 496,143. All the utilities are done. That's a lot of work. All the under drainage for the detention system, that's all done. So she's at overall she's at 37% of her entire contract. Then it's our stipulated amount for our general conditions and staffing of $123,905, and then there's a small portion of reimbursables of $5,000, which is a reimbursable. There's a report. What's in there? It's basically water cooler, office supplies, everything that we're allowed to reimburse. Any questions on that? And this has been reviewed with the sub-finance as well.
That's a good quick question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned using the RTUs as temporary heat. Are we using temporary ductwork for that, or how does that work?
They'll be putting filter media, and we have cleaning of the ductwork at the very end of the job, but they'll put temporary filter media in. But all the ductwork, even with all the protection, at the very end, they have to do the ductwork with licensed ductwork.
Sam, you go around to that.
Yep, so, IMTL is the materials testing agent, so you'll see two invoices for that. ONG has a sign-in sheet for them, so they verify, making sure that every time they come on site to do any sort of testing, that they send a report for whatever, whenever they come on site. And we get copies of all the reports, and then if there's anything that comes back as not passing whatever test that they do, ONG will address whatever the issue is, and then they'll come back out and relook at things. So you can just expect to see, IMTL probably monthly, for the foreseeable future, I would say. Any questions on those ones? Okay. IES is our commissioning agent. Again, he's been coming out, periodically to look at the, building envelope, making sure that it's being installed correctly. And again, bringing up any issues, and with ONG having those be addressed as well. Does anyone have any questions on that one? And then the next portion of the financial packet is the change orders. So there are a total of 5 change orders that have all been reviewed, by the decision making group. We can just go through each of them briefly. I don't know if Michael or Nelson, if you guys want to speak to them. To go through them. Or do you have anything to add?
I could quickly just touch on
Okay.
the first one, the 10,366. That's a CM contingency draw. So on the owner's contingency side, it doesn't affect it, but that 10,366 will be under the GMP contingency, and that's for badminton sleeves in lieu of the volleyball sleeves. So it's the differential, and there's a credit for the sleeves that were provided. The eye wash covers was a school request to have the eye wash shower assembly to be the same setup as the current system that the school has, which is a cover, which doesn't allow kids to jam things in the eye wash spray assembly, and also to have an audible alarm with a flow switch. So student does activate it, you know, have a flood and no one knows about it over the weekend, so. This is an added benefit. Almost an insurance policy on those eyewash. So that's 39 or 36. Number PCO number 29. TSKP can add my explanation, but the basis of design, there were added lenses, added features to the light fixtures to eliminate hot spots.
Sure, I can expound on that. So the low bidder who is providing the light fixtures is one of 3 equal packages that we had specified. They all meet the specs, all the fixtures that meet the specs. But we did notice when we reviewed the shop drawings that 2 fixtures we raised questions about. And that had to do with one linear fixture that's in the atrium space, the main concourse. There's a continuous light that runs down the concourse, and it is to illuminate the floor. And what we saw was that in the specifications, we had omitted the lens that kicks the light out. Without that lens, we would have a hot spot on the wall, which we wanted to eliminate. So it's a legitimate additional cost. We went back and forth with the manufacturer and with the representative, the subcontractor, and it is a legitimate cost. I think it ended up being like $7 a linear foot, but it's a continuous upcharge. The other fixture is in the media center, in the library, where we have fixtures overhead. And we noticed that we had omitted in those fixtures, the baffles that are at the bottom of the fixture, and that's to prevent glare when you're walking into the room. If you glance up, you can see the lamp. So we wanted to cut off that light by making sure that there are louvers at the bottom of the fixture. Again, it's an upcharge. It's a legitimate increase in cost, and the total is as indicated here, $34,434.
And then the next PCO number 30, was provide production playback in the scene shop, so it's adding some volume controls to it. This was in the submittal process that this was
This middle review of the total AV package, we realized that the scene shop, which is made as a scene shop, is also an important part of the back house during production. And we did independent volume control of the sound system there, so we did another piece of equipment to make sure that feature was provided. For the total length of the scene shop does not mean it's a scene shop, but it's in its back of house backstage.
And then the last PCO, it's also AV related. It was some discontinued equipment from the time that spec is written to time it's been out. I don't know the specifics as far as this device itself, but the device is no longer available, so it's providing a different model.
Right.
Which is at charge.
The new pieces cost more than what was put in the bid, which was the basis of design model, which is no longer good.
Any questions on? the change or no? All right, that's the whole package. If nobody has any questions on that, all in favor? Opposed? All right, so moving passes. Thank you. All right, so we're gonna move right on to item G3. So I'm gonna ask for the motion here, and then I just have a few comments to set us up before we actually open this up for further discussion. But can I have a motion to approve the attached fee proposal from TSKP Studio for changes impacted by the 1928 building project?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we're gonna open this up for discussion, but I just want to do kind of a little bit of a level setting as a team here. Because our conversations are gonna be a little bit different today than they have been previously regarding the request we're gonna talk about. So just a few things that I want to remind us all of, as the FHS building project specifically. So just as a reminder, we have been collaborating with the 1928 building project since the inception of the committee. So this is nothing new to us, that we knew the 1928 project was happening and that they've been working very diligently on the project and that request. We have representation from our projects on each of our independent committees. So we have Chris obviously that reports back to us, and then we have representatives on 1928 as well. Chris is there. And we make sure we stay in collaboration. Pat is obviously very, very close to that as well. So we've stayed in contact and certainly been collaborative with that committee and that project up to date. And in addition, remember, we've heard our professional partners as well talk about collaborative design sessions and meetings, as well as we've heard more about the 1928 building and what that project is going to look like. Another reminder, the town of Farmington approved the 1928 building renovation project by a 2-1 margin in April of this year. So very important to remember, because just like our project, that was a vote of confidence, certainly from our residents in the town of Farmington, obviously supporting the goals of the project, but also putting the trust in both of our committees that we're going to deliver on both these projects in a way that's meaningful. So super important, I think, both projects, making sure we collaborate and deliver. So the job of both our committees is to make decisions in the best interest of the town of Farmington as it relates to both our project and the 1928 building renovation project. And, you know, we talk a lot here, a lot of our conversation as we've switched over is really about expense management, making sure we understand where we're spending our money, how we're spending our money. And we're certainly going to stay vigilant around that and make sure our project schedule as the building committee stays in line, obviously, with the help of our professional partners, and making sure that budget is where it needs to be. But again, now we're at the point where we need to expand that collaboration with 1928 to making sure we're making really smart decisions as we move forward. So we're going to be continually evaluating decisions that impact both projects to ensure we maximize reimbursement. So it's something, think about that. We really have to make smart decisions here as we think about both projects in tandem, and align our project schedules and resources, make sure we're really delivering a cohesive site that meets the needs of the town. So we now are at the point where we're really coming together, and I think it's important that we really look at this as an important goal of our project as well. So we always understood that additional design work would be required for our project in order to finalize the site, based on we didn't know what was happening, and we were making changes as we went along with it because we were just needed more information to make decisions. So now that we better understand the scope of the work for the 1928 building project, and we're going to begin that evaluation tonight. So we're really going to start to dig in and start to understand details and impacts from both projects. So what we're going to discuss tonight is going to help us understand the costs associated to potential updates to our project based on collaborative design suggestions and things that have happened between our professional partners and 1928 building professional partners, and making sure that we're really meeting the need for both projects. So just a different view, different lens that we need to, I think, come forward and have really just smart and thoughtful conversations around both projects. I know the 1928 is doing exactly the same thing. So we're going to stay in that collaborative mode and just make sure we're doing the best thing that's in the interest of the town of Farmington as a whole for both these projects. So I don't think anybody here was doubting that we would do that, but I think it's important that we level set that as we start this conversation and think about it differently. So any concerns or thoughts around that before we jump in? No? Okay. All right, great. So why don't we go ahead and open it up for conversation on this. The attached fee proposal from TFTP Studios, just to kind of understand what we have in front of us and what this looks like.
So perhaps I can explain how we arrived at this figure. This figure is for design work only. It's not construction work. But O&G needs the design in order to confirm the price. Very early on, we had a conversation with O&G, and they brought in their major subcontractor for site work, Ibulgio. We had a conversation about what are we talking about, order of magnitude, rough order of magnitude, what is the impact to the construction cost that O&G needs to perform. And I think there was a net credit, but again, it was a order of magnitude. That's without drawings. That was based upon a conversation and basically my cartoons. This is where we think the limit line will be between the high school project and the 1928 project. We need to do actual construction drawings to document the changes in the site work for the high school. Meantime, Silver Petrocelli, which has been hired to do the 1928 building and its site work, is proceeding with their work. That's a separate project, separate fee, not unrelated to the high school project. But between us and Silver Petrocelli, we need to make sure that we create the line between the jigsaw puzzles that need to fit together. And so we've actually started those conversations, those coordination discussions, but now we need the details in the site work. And that's why we arrived at this fee proposal. It is legitimate additional design work required. Most of the work is for site work. So you'll see the bulk of the fee proposal is for SLR, who is our site civil engineer, and Richter and Segan, which is our landscape architect. But we do have some coordination fee in here, and our contract allows for a markup on sub-consultant work, which is how we derive these numbers. It's divided into two numbers. One is a lump sum for the 1928 impact to the site work. And that total is $103,143, as you can see on the first page of my letter. The second component is for is a lump sum for a formal review by the town officials, specifically planning and zoning and the town planner, to get a revised site plan approval. Remember that the high school has already gone through site plan approval and has gotten a site permit to build what was originally designed for the entire site. Changing the site details may require a site plan modification, and it could go either of two ways. It could be an administrative approval on the part of the planner, or it could be kicked up to the full commission review to get a formal site plan modification. And so if that happens, there would be an additional fee, which is identified here under the second item. That's an additional $16,695. So that's how the two parts of that fee proposal is derived. And you'll see there are lines for civil engineering, landscape architecture, oh, I forgot, electrical engineering. We also have Cola Roman, who's our electrical engineer, because we have some site lighting that will have to be changed. And that's tennis court lighting as well as walkway lighting. We don't have any diagrams to show you yet because we haven't created those details yet, but we do have an understanding after discussing the relative scope changes in the site work, which will involve relocating the tennis courts. They're still belong to the high school, but we're putting them in a different location per the directions of the other architect. And they will be creating some parking that's associated with the 1928. So they're capturing the parking lot work for the 1928 project. We're capturing the changes in tennis courts, walkway layouts, and utility layouts. And following my letter are backup proposals from SLR that describe their scope of work, their fee breakdown. And then there's a letter from Richter and Segan with their fee proposal contained in it. And there's, as you can see, we've had to mark up or edit some of their fee numbers. That was in collaboration with CSG. And then there's a letter from Cola Roman with their proposal. So add all that stuff up. That's how we derive them.
Want to make sure, just to your point, that the two different packages that I think the question is tonight that we approve both. But under assuming that the second piece of the package we might not have to do that piece. But the request here is to, in front of the building phase, please approve now, just in case. We do have to do that second portion as far as the additional reviews, but it's not required, that it's obviously.
That's
that work wouldn't be completed. All right. Yes, go ahead.
You mentioned that you cited on a line.
Yes.
Could we at some point see that?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Yeah, we'll forward that to you. that line may become important. I don't know what the deal is between Board of Ed and
No, it's just a curiosity of, you know, where that would be. I don't, you know, Scott is going to the 1928 meeting, so I just am curious, as superintendent, where that.
fair enough, yeah, so we will prepare that in a clear format and send that to you.
I think it's fair to say that we didn't come up, that line was sort of identified collaboratively between the 1928 team and TSKP in terms of, you know,
What made sense?
what made sense
Right,
and,
right.
and, you know, what should stay within the limits of the 1928 building and then what should stay within the limits of the high school. And
Yes, and this was done jointly with Russ, who participated in the discussions. And we wanted to be careful to make sure that, when the high school project is audited by the state, it would pass muster.
Right,
We want to exclude costs that are strictly for 1928 and include costs that are only for the high school. And that's the purpose of the delineation, which I promise we will say.
thank you.
All right, so,
I have a question.
oh yeah, go ahead.
This may be more for Pat, but how are we ensuring that our contractors are not double billing or doing double work? How do we make sure that, I mean, we just talked about coordination, but I'd like to. Yeah, of course, good question. I think part of that is the continuity and the staff support. So I'm on both committees, Russ is involved in both committees, and we make sure that, you know, we're drawing that line for the reason that there's no duplication between the efforts in this committee and in that committee. So it's being checked and double checked, and our architects have been working collaboratively with TSKP and then reviewed by us internally as well.
And then is this the only fee proposal we're expecting related to this impact? Or are we expecting that maybe down the line, we're gonna get another one that we're gonna have to approve?
I mean, I think the way to kind of think about this, I think this is the biggest one we would see. I don't wanna speak for TSKP, but the way I kind of was thinking about it is, if you remember, for early enabling, we had the parking lot was just designated as temporary parking, and it wasn't designed thoroughly, so we had to do a fee proposal and bring it through design. This is kind of the same thing, where it was always designated as 1928 building, but the use wasn't defined, and therefore the design didn't start. So I think this is the beginning of it, but this is, I would assume this is the bulk of it, but Richard, if you.
It is, so maybe I should go back in history a little bit. When we were engaged to do the project, we looked at the entire site, including the 1928 building. Should it be saved or should it not be saved? And we talked about that with this committee at some length. At the direction of the town council, they said, we want to leave our options open. We don't want to jump to the conclusion that the 1928 buildings should be removed. We're going to have a study. And they did. They created the 1928 committee. They did a study and they came to the conclusion, let's go to referendum on the 1928 question. And at that time, we were not involved in the 1928 question at all. And the voters said they want to save the 1928 building for a purpose to be determined. And that was part of the study. What purposes would the 1928 building serve? We didn't do that study. It was not our work. And then they engaged an architect to continue with the details for the 1928 interior improvements, exterior improvements, bring everything up to code. Not our work, separate architect. So you have two teams working on the high school project and then the 1928 project. So there is no crossover. Separate fees, separate project. Full disclosure, there is one common consultant, which is the structural consultant. They happen to choose Michael Horton Associates, who's the structural engineer for the high school. Happens to be the same structural engineer for the 1928, the structural improvements. But there is, other than that, there is no overlap whatsoever.
And then can you just remind me, is this the money that we would be voting to approve this? Where is that coming from? Is this, did you set something aside for the 1928 building?
It would come from our contingency.
Okay.
I don't think this would be a dumb question. Are we voting
for design fee and markup?
Yeah, so it would be this total number, which is inclusive of the design fee and KP's markup on the design fee.
So column A would have been, what it would have been without. the 10% markup. And
Right, so may I jump in?
Yeah.
Okay. So in column A, the design fee, those are the costs that were received from the civil engineer provided to TSKP. So their third party contract said, this is how much it's gonna cost us. In TSKP's contract, they're allowed a 10% markup for overseeing and administrating those contracts with any one of those third party vendors. So the 31.5, 10% of, on top of that is 34,650. So each one of those is it's the markup, it's the civil engineer's cost plus TSKP's markup. So they get a 10% markup on each one of those, and then TSKP is included a coordination fee on top of that, and that coordination fee is for their time to coordinate. I mean, you can elaborate on your coordination fee, but it's above and beyond the 10% that they're entitled to in their contract. And so this is, so they get 10% on those, which is pretty standard. And then any work that they actually physically are doing on top of that as part of this is what you see that coordination.
So for example, the civil engineer, they get the 31, and then they get the 10%.
Correct.
The extra.
That's correct.
Okay, that's.
Yeah.
And so the coordination, is there like a dedicated allocated time period, like designated hours or whatever, or is that just? Is that possible, is it possible that could go beyond?
No, so this is a lump sum proposal. I'm not gonna go over these numbers.
Okay.
And some of my, there's a little risk in my work, and what I don't wanna put forward is a proposal that says hourly, because I could do that, actually, I could do that, but then I end up having to justify all the hours I do. And I would rather have a clean understanding of what the total exposure is for you, and then I take the risk to make sure that I don't exceed that number. Okay, so that's the principle behind this. It's a lump sum. I'm not gonna go over this number.
You had said that part of the fee is moving the tennis court. I'm also going back in my memory
Yes.
and remembering that there was an alternate location that we had discussed, and I've seen diagrams of it. So what is this new work?
So the work that ended up in the plans and specs are very carefully detailed, all the grading plans, the drainage in the tennis courts in its final location for the high school requirements. This other work will be, again, another set of drawings, but it will be, again, grading plans, drainage, utilities, to make sure that the proposed new location for the tennis courts, which were suggested by the 1928 team, it's a different set of drawings.
the alternate location that I remember when we talked about the 1928 building remains the same for the tennis courts, or did that change in some way?
No, the alternate location is gone. So we ended up with the base bid, the base design for the tennis courts. And that was the end of it.
That's the only one that we did the final design on.
Right.
Grading it out, doing stormwater calculations. That's what you pulled your site plan permit on, your stormwater work going on. So the other version was not fully documented.
Okay,
and-
that's what I'm thinking.
And did not pan out with the findings of the 1928 committee either. So we didn't waste that, we didn't spend that money, but we didn't waste it either, because they came to a different conclusion as to the final allocation and orientation of tennis courts based on what they need to make that 40,000 square foot building work.
Plus parking for them.
It's really the parking,
Yeah.
because the parking off of the 1928 building would
go where the proposed tennis courts are
Oh,
now.
no, right, I understand that. I'm talking about the ones that were in the field. When we thought about the 1928 building, we moved those,
We-
maybe a partial plan.
We did a
Over
diagram.
to the field.
We did a diagram.
That's-
Said
Yeah.
This could happen, but we didn't design it, and we certainly didn't submit it to your zoning department, your stormwater group and everyone else.
So that was an exercise to see the potential of doing that, but it wasn't fully designed.
Yes,
That's
you had originally proposed a design fee to design it, and we said, let's hold on and see what
Yeah.
happens with the 1928
Okay.
building before we move further.
Yeah, before we spent that money.
Yes.
So
That's correct.
I guess what I'm saying is, we did contemplate that. We did, that there would be additional fee with the 1928, because we wanted to show a different location than the parking lot, which was the original location of the tennis courts, and so we moved it over to show that, and we knew that it had the potential, it was going to have additional costs by having to fully design that.
Right.
But not knowing the outcome of a referendum that hadn't
Exactly.
happened, there was no
Right.
point in designing an alternative.
And the use of that building, because we didn't know that
Correct.
either.
Correct.
I just wanted to make the point that we did know.
Yes.
You know, that we would have, if the 1928 building were to pass, that we would have to fully design it. I just remember the location of it and where we were thinking it might go.
Right.
At that time.
Is this going to impact the bid that we put out? And we have someone already contracted to do the tennis.
So
courts, correct?
we actually rejected the tennis court bid.
Okay,
When the bids came in, we rejected the tennis court, and I think part of it was the way the respondents put in off of the specs. So it was not related to the 1928 project at that time. But we do have to rebid the tennis court contract anyway.
okay.
But the tennis court construction with utilities, we still have to do.
Correct.
So, and we had made it a separate bid altogether for that.
That's right.
reason.
Correct.
I remember.
Yeah.
We think the tennis courts will, we hope will come in, relatively close to what we already carried in the GMP.
There's a
Because
GMP.
of GMP allowance, right? And the idea is that the tennis court vendor just puts the tennis courts in place on a pad ready, we'll call it, the site's all ready for the tennis courts to come in. So if they put them here, or they put them over here, their work should be relatively the same amount of courts. The configuration is a little different, I think the original had 4 courts and then 2 off of it. Now we're gonna have 6 in a row, or it's the other way around, but.
It might be easier for the slabs to be put in over the tennis courts, because the original configuration is.
Staggered.
Right.
Staggered.
That's correct. So,
Because of the post tension.
Right.
But we have a full allowance for that bid in our G.
and so for overlap of scope, those conversations are happening right now. George, who's the superintendent for ONG, is thinking about how much they're gonna demo, how much do they need to leave. Making sure that we're not pulling away more than we should be, or that we're not leaving too much, right? So there's those kinds of conversations that are happening as well to make sure that the handoff, if you will, from where we sever that line and where the next contractor takes over is very well defined.
Great questions.
Yeah. Clarification on this one. All right. All right, so if there are, no, and everybody remembers we're contingent, we're definitely, the part 1 is, we're approving both, but part 2 will only be used as appropriate. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes.
So once this hits the owner's contingency, we are hopeful that with the order of magnitude was a credit, that credit will help to offset the cost of the design piece. So you'll see it hit the contingency, but we also anticipate a credit coming back to bring that back down at some point. I say that now. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Great conversation. always good to ask questions and understand and stuff, so. All right, so we will go on to item 4. Could I get a motion to cancel the September 6th, 2023 FHS building committee meeting? Motion.
Second.
Discussion. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, now we move right on to other business, or actually, we don't have any particular for other business tonight. We do have item J though, executive session. So. Here, so we figured I get a motion, for us to move to executive session. This is discussion regarding a pending claim pertaining to the Farmington High School project in accordance with section 1-260 of the Connecticut General Statute. Motion.
Second.
All right, just a few notes on this. During the meeting to effective session is permitted by the Connecticut General Statute section 1-206B for the purposes of discussing a pending claim pertaining to Farmington High School project. The attendance in executive session shall be limited to voting and non-voting members of the Farmington High School Building Committee only. And just a note, approval of this motion shall be by vote. All right, that motion.